You could not beat a chimpanzee in a fight. Not even close. Pound for pound, it would tear you apart before you landed a single punch. You have no claws, no fangs, no fur to shield you from the cold. You cannot outrun a deer, outswim a seal, or outclimb a squirrel. By almost every measure that matters in the wild, you are pathetic. But the real answer is far stranger than pathetic. Your weakness is not a flaw in the design, it is the design. Think about your body for a second. Soft skin, slow legs, blunt teeth, a spine that aches if you sit wrong for too long. Every other predator on this planet comes loaded with a weapon built into its body. Lions have claws. Wolves have jaws that snap bone. Even a house cat has retractable blades in its paws. What do you have? 10 soft fingers and a brain that worries about deadlines. It looks like nature forgot to finish you. But here is the twist nobody tells you. Weakness was the plan all along. Around 2 million years ago, your ancestors were not the strongest creatures on the African savanna. They were scavengers, not even close. They were scavengers, picking at the leftover carcasses that lions and hyenas abandoned. Slow, fragile, constantly hunted. And yet somehow, from that starting position, they became the only species on Earth capable of building a rocket ship. How does that happen? How does the weakest animal in the room end up owning the room? The anthropologist Richard Wrangham has spent decades studying exactly this puzzle. His research points to something almost embarrassingly simple: fire. The moment your ancestors learned to cook food, everything changed. Cooking breaks down tough fibers before your teeth ever have to. It pre-digests meat and plants so your gut does not have to work as hard. That single trick freed up an enormous amount of energy. And your body did something remarkable with that spare energy. It grew a bigger brain. A gorilla spends most of its day chewing raw plants just to survive. Its jaw is a machine built for grinding. Yours is not. Your jaw is small, your teeth are dull, your stomach is short compared to other primates. You gave up brute processing power in your body and rerouted it upward into your skull. You are, quite literally, built weak on purpose so you could be built smart instead. But a big brain alone does not explain everything. A gazelle still outruns you. A shark still outswims you. So why aren't you dead yet? This is where your body reveals its secret weapon: not strength, endurance. The biologist Daniel Lieberman has shown that humans are freakishly good at one specific physical task: running long distances in extreme heat. Not sprinting, not power, distance. You sweat through millions of glands across your entire skin, releasing heat as you move. A cheetah cannot do this. It overheats within a few hundred meters and has to stop, panting, helpless. You do not have to stop. You can walk, then jog, then walk again, hour after hour, while your body quietly cools itself the entire time. Early humans used this ability in a hunting method called persistence hunting. They would track a single antelope for hours under the blazing African sun, never sprinting, never using a spear from a distance, just walking and jogging behind it relentlessly until the animal's body gave out from heat exhaustion. The antelope was faster in every single moment, but your ancestors were faster across the whole day. Isn't it strange that the slowest sprinter in the animal kingdom became one of its most efficient hunters? Weakness forced cooperation too. A lone human with no claws is lunch. A group of humans with no claws is a problem for anything that tries to attack them. You could not fight off a leopard alone. So your ancestors learned to share information, share food, and share risk. Language grew out of necessity, not luxury. You needed to warn each other. You needed to plan together. You needed to trust the person next to you because your body offered you no other defense. The psychologist and primatologist team of Karel van Schaik and Karen Eisler proposed something called the expensive tissue hypothesis, which sounds complicated but is actually beautifully simple. Brains are metabolically expensive. They burn an enormous amount of energy just sitting there thinking. Something else in the body had to shrink to pay for that cost. In humans, it was the gut and the muscles. You quite literally traded muscle mass for mental horsepower. Every time you lost a fight to something stronger, you were paying down a loan that your brain had already taken out millions of years earlier. Here is where it gets even more strange. Your weakness did not just build cooperation between people. It built cooperation across time. A lion cub learns almost everything it needs to know within its first 2 years. After that, it is on its own. A human child needs care for over a decade. That is an extraordinarily long window of vulnerability. Why would evolution allow such a fragile, slow-developing creature to survive at all? Because that long childhood is where culture gets transferred. Every skill your parents ever learned, every mistake your grandparents ever made, every trick for building shelter or finding water, all of it gets passed down through those helpless years instead of being relearned from scratch by every single generation. Your weakness bought you time, and that time became a library. Compare that to almost any other animal. A newborn wildebeest can stand and run within minutes of being born because it has no other choice. It has no time to be taught. It has no window in which to be weak. Its body has to be ready immediately or it dies. You had the opposite. You were allowed to be weak for years, and in that weakness, something invisible was quietly built. Knowledge that outlives the individual who first discovered it. So the story flips completely. You were never in a fair fight with the rest of the animal kingdom, and that was the entire point. Every other species was competing on the same battlefield. Strength, speed, claws, venom, size. Your ancestors quietly stepped off that battlefield and built a different one. One where the winner was not the fastest or the strongest, but the one who could plan, cooperate, remember, and adapt. Is a spear not simply borrowed strength? Is a fire not simply a borrowed fang, sharper and hotter than anything a predator was ever born with? Every weapon you have ever built exists because your body could not build one on its own. The absence created the invention. If you had been born with claws, would you have ever needed to invent the knife? This pattern still shows up in you today, right now, in ways you rarely notice. You feel physically inferior walking past a dog that can smell 1,000 times better than you, or a bird that can see for miles. But you do not lose sleep over this the way your ancestors might have. You compensate constantly and automatically, without even realizing you are doing it. You wear shoes because your feet are soft. You build houses because your skin cannot handle winter. You cook food because your jaw gave up its power millions of years ago. None of this feels like weakness anymore. It feels like normal life. But every single object around you right now exists because your body could not do the job on its own. Even your emotions carry the fingerprints of this trade. Loneliness feels unbearable to you in a way it does not for a solitary predator, because isolation for your ancestors meant almost certain death. A tiger can walk alone through a forest for its entire life and thrive. A human alone in a forest, for long enough, starts to unravel psychologically. That is not a personality flaw. That is millions of years of evolutionary memory reminding you that your survival was never a solo project. Think about how deeply this shows up in your daily behavior. You check your phone for a message back. You feel a small sting when a text goes unanswered for too long. That sting is not irrational. It is an ancient alarm system tuned over millions of years to treat social disconnection as a physical threat. Your body cannot tell the difference between being excluded from a modern group chat and being exiled from a Pleistocene hunting band. Both trigger the same quiet dread. Both whisper the same warning. You were not built to survive out here by yourself. Fear itself tells the same story if you look closely enough. A gazelle startles and bolts the instant it senses danger, muscles firing before conscious thought even catches up. Its whole nervous system is a single-purpose alarm built for one job: run. Yours is different. Your fear response pauses just long enough to ask a question first. Is this actually dangerous? Can I reason my way out? Should I call for help? That half-second delay looks like weakness in a life-or-death sprint, but it is the exact same mental machinery that later lets you sit still in a burning building and calculate the fastest exit instead of panicking blindly toward the nearest wall. Consider your hands for a moment, since they tell perhaps the strangest part of this story. A gorilla's hand can crush a coconut without effort. Yours cannot, but your hand can thread a needle, strike a matchstick, carve a flint blade to a razor's edge, and later guide a pencil across a blank page to sketch out the very tools that would replace brute force forever. The dexterity came at the cost of raw crushing power. That trade might be the single most important trade your ancestors ever made, because it is the reason you can hold a spear, a pen, a scalpel, and a smartphone with equal precision. Weak grip. Extraordinary control. One had to be sacrificed for the other. And this is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Every advantage humans have ever had was born directly from a disadvantage. The bigger brain exists because the jaw got smaller. The endurance exists because the muscles got weaker and had to be replaced with efficiency instead of raw force. The cooperation exists because no individual could survive the world alone. Strip away any one of those weaknesses, and the advantages built on top of them would never have existed either. So the next time you feel outmatched, physically small, outpaced by something faster or stronger, remember what that feeling actually represents. It is not new. It is the oldest feeling your species has ever carried. And it is the exact feeling that built everything you now call civilization. You could not beat a chimpanzee in a fight. You still can't. But you were never supposed to win that fight. You were built to walk away from it, invent something sharper, and come back with an entire species standing behind you.